I'm going to shift gears and invite my friend on my right, Amitava. He's recently taken up a job with Biocon, headquartered here in Bangalore, and a company I'm sure all of you know and hear about every day. He has a great leader as his boss, who's been appointed to IIM Bangalore as his chairperson just today or yesterday. The question to you, Amitabh, is you've come into a pharma industry, an Indian company, with aspirations to go global. Yeah, they, of course, sell their products globally, but I know for a fact that you guys are setting up a manufacturing facility in Malaysia. While talking about global markets, local talent, what is it that you're doing uniquely in Malaysia to hire the first bunch of, let's say, 300 odd people? And I guess it's easy to hire. How are you going to, the follow-up questions, how are you going to bring in the culture of Biocon India into a Biocon global firm? Are there some challenges that you're going through, some lessons to share?
So like Bala said, I'm making a very interesting transition in my professional life. I used to work in an IT BPO company, and I have worked in several IT BPO companies for a long time. And I shifted from there to the biopharma world some time back. And you know, I was hearing, you know, we are talking about, we are concerned about talent, we are talking about attracting talent, retaining talent, growing talent, challenging talent, and so on. So before I get on to the Malaysia and the global footprint story, you know, to me, you know, it's a very interesting journey because I moved from a, you know, a industry which had attrition of 100% in a year to an industry where attrition is probably in single digits in a year. Okay, so I've actually, you know, in a position to share both my experiences with all of you. I'll be happy to do that. So coming to the global footprint for Biocon, as Bala rightly said, Biocon had been started as an entrepreneurial venture by Kiran, and the last 10 years have seen a significant journey of the company from an Indian company into an Indian multinational company. And while the multinational journey started with selling products in different markets and very aggressively in new markets and emerging markets, today we are also going and setting up a plant in a place like Malaysia, which is not really, you know, a place where most of the IT or ITES companies have gone before. So two things that we do or we are doing. One is, and before I go to the two, let me take a step back and say, you know, to me, the challenge that an employee faces, you know, we have read books on first 90 days, first 180 days, and so on. But I think the challenge is not limited to the first 90 days, but it just takes shape in a different way as we go along. So the challenge that an employee faces are twofold. First and foremost, as any employee in an organization, I want to become someone. Okay, so I need a certain identity in that organization. I want to know that I create value, I add value, and the fact that me coming or not coming to office makes a difference to the business, right? So that's the first thing, according to me, which a person is looking for. The second thing that a person is really looking for is a clear set of communication in terms of what he or she needs to do and how that work that the person does is going to translate into the business getting into a certain gear or to a certain place. So first and foremost is identity, second is communication, and that communication can come with rewards, recognition, you know, a whole lot of other goodies which happen over time. So we said, okay, you know, if we are going to hire people in a place like Malaysia, and you know, typically chemical or pharma industries are not in the main city. So we are in parks which are designated areas for such industries. And we have to hire local people. So we have so far hired about 300 plus people in that place who belong to that area, which is Johor Bahru, somewhere between Singapore and Malay, in Kuala Lumpur, Johor Bahru. And what we have done is we have brought them to India in batches. Now, whether that's a sustainable model or not, I'm coming to it. But the initial 500 people we want to bring them to India. There are two reasons why we want to bring them to India. First and foremost, we want to tell them all about Biocon and make them experience Biocon. So we have felt that we can give inductions, we can give presentations, we can show them video films, some of us can travel periodically, but it is just impossible for us to recreate a Biocon of 35 years in a place like Malaysia in 5 months. So we have brought them here to go through the whole experience of being a Bioconite. That's number one. Number two, while they are going through their training, they are also shadowing in actual work which they are supposed to do when they go back to Malaysia. And all through the process, we all have spokes, we have dedicated buddies, we have mentors. So the works, I think all of us or most of us in this room are quite well versed with the way this whole attraction and hiring of talent has progressed over time. So while they have all of that, what we are also doing is we are trying to ingrain a mix of what is going to be the local flavor and the global image of Biocon into those people. So it's a give and take which is happening every day. So at the end of the day, so we have put them up in guest houses, hotels, where they are staying and they are going through their everyday interactions. So they go through a certain time of the day when they are in training. Then they actually get on to the work part of it. So there's a certain amount of time when they actually go to the floor, they actually work, whether in R&D or in formulation or in actual factory operations. And then there's a time which has been demarcated when they actually sit around and exchange ideas. Okay, they share with us what they should be doing and what is the Malaysian way of doing things in a similar setup. And we try and take those points in and also tell them that what we expect them to do being a Bioconite in Malaysia. And that's the way we are integrating the whole process. And of course, we have seeded the Malaysia facility with some of our experienced India people who have moved there already. So it's going to be an interesting journey for the next 3 to 4 months. This process is already 3 months old. And once we have about 500-600 people, we will then get into a different gear and not probably send all of them here, but create a pool of people who will keep coming and going and keep, soaking in that culture. So to me, and I worked in a company where I was responsible for setting up our Philippines and Sri Lanka operations. To me, it's like for any global company, it's like the palm of my hand, right? So each of my locations are like my fingers, but they are all connected to the main body, and the body is the global organization. So while I see the same organization in every place I go in terms of the look, feel, the visuals, the way things are done, but at the same time, there's a huge amount of customization or localization that goes in, which makes the person who's coming in to that plant realize that, hey, I'm not in India, but I'm in Philippines or I'm in Malaysia. So that's what we are doing, Bala.
Great. That's a great example for someone here who asked about local, right? Taking an organization which is very Indian, building on it, and trying to assimilate all the cultural ethos of Biocon India into a global firm. And as they expand and grow, I'm sure there's a lot to learn from other side of the ocean as well. My friend has been patiently waiting on the other end. Prasad?
For a good reason,
For a good reason, I'm sure.
asking such tough questions. He's worse than Arnav.
You're going to have it very easy, Prasad.
Thank you.
Prasad runs a firm called McAfee, runs HR for them. And very interesting, it's a product company. I'm sure each and every one of you here concerned about security definitely have the McAfee product. And if you don't, please buy. Please buy one now, right? So they have a product mindset in the organization. And to develop these products, you don't have people only in one location. Products are developed globally. These are for global markets. So I could have the product head based out of India, and I could have a team of 100 people sitting in somewhere else in the world, or I could have a leader somewhere else in the world and a team sitting here in India. It's a big challenge to ensure that the teams are communicating with each other, at the same time being productive and efficient at work. How do you guys handle this, and what are some insights? And he's been with the McAfee organization for quite some time, almost 8 to 10 years, if I recall our conversation.
9 years.
9 years now,
Quite a long
so
time for
average of 8
impatient
and
man
10,
like me.
yeah. So tell us more about how the organization internally, how does it feel to work inside McAfee?
Sure. I'll probably put mine more as a case study, less of advice, because Socrates gave a lot of advice and later they poisoned him. So I'll kind of refrain from that. See, I thought let me just share a few context, and that would typically help. I joined this organization, about 9 years ago when we were at about 230 people in India. And I think security was extremely I think we were perhaps the first organization to start security development in India. We had existed back then for about 3 years. And what is the compelling purpose? If you see McAfee typically, it's a company that is, like any product company, is not very headcount intensive. We are just about 6,800 people globally. But our spread is pretty large. We operate out of about 100 plus countries and with some critical mass in about 49 countries. So we are spread pretty much in different parts of the world. So there is complexity there. And the growth in India did not happen by design, never. This is a very niche area, and you need to prove that you can build world-class products. And and you have a stable ecosystem and a good talent, and that's the only way that we could compete and grow. So I think as a management team, our goal back then and today has been a lofty goal of seeing how we can actually set up a world-class engineering center which can look eye to eye with other engineering centers and build some amazing products, but also an environment and culture where you can get the talent, but the talent is feeling motivated to bring in their creative best. So that's the journey we started. I'm just sharing where we are in a relatively young footprint, 11 years that we have spent. We have grown to 1,550. This is the largest site for McAfee, bigger than its US site. We have 48 products, and all 48 products are some way or the other touched upon in India. Many of them are fully owned here, including certain like Aparna's work, a lot of, a path that we have not taken as an organization even globally. Innovation work is now out of India. 33% of our people, you would wonder that product company and security, there is that product, there is war on talent, definitely. But I think 33% of the people have spent beyond 5 years in the company. I think that's an indicator that, because if you want to build products, you need to spend time. You need to walk tall. You join, you understand security as a domain, it's about a year. Then you spend another year, you're just understanding your product. Then if the guy is already itching to leave, then you're just scratching the surface. It's difficult to build anything. So I think it's been a humbling journey. So what I can share is what we have done and what some of the things that we clicked right in the beginning. So fundamentally, because we're a global company, and just to give a context, many of you would be there, we have 100 managers who have teams locally, and they also have teams in other parts of the world. We have another 100 managers who are out-of-country managers, who have teams in India, and they have teams in other places. So it's a highly matrix structure. Let's look at leadership. That's the key element, right? And leadership, we have somebody who represents, Anand Prahlad is the MD for India, but he's an engineering leader. Nobody reports into Anand. The rest of my exec team, 9 members, they all are individual leaders of different business functions, vertically report to different parts in the world. So nobody really, by authority, reports into each other. It's a game of influence, right? So that's just to set the stage in terms of, where we are. So some of the things that we did is, number one, when we set up it, and to many questions to that, what we did, and this is just, it may work, may not work, and I also gain newer perspectives from all of you. See, when we're looking at talent, especially at the leadership level, we made sure that we hire talent absolutely with global experience. We peppered especially the talent pool, which is managers and above, with a mandatory global experience. And in fact, if you went in slightly to the directors and above, then it was mandatory that they did have a couple of years of overseas experience. Because working especially at a leadership level, working in a global environment and leading functions there was very critical for us. And once you're able to get that leadership team with that kind of a competency and a cultural sensitivity, then you're by and large able to also groom and nurture the talent under those leadership. Second is, I think getting talent inside, I would agree with the gentleman here that there is a I think there's a big need. There's a big need to bridge between academia and the industry. I think even today there is a lot of focus where corporates enter the colleges as a consumer and the academia as a supplier. Of course, there has been different iterations over a period of time where that relationship is bridging, but still a big gap. There's a lot of focus in the country for skills. But in the corporates like this, there has to be a lot of emphasis also on the bhav part of the management. How do you communicate with people? What is a global ecosystem? And it's very difficult to build some of those once they join the corporate. You can teach coding, C++, product domain, but some values and the communication part of it and the cultural sensitivity, we also struggle. We are not that we have gotten to it. So we are trying to seed specific institutes, specific engagements that have a deeper outreach very proactively, not just at the foot in the door kind of an approach to hire, is what, including we are right now working with certain institutes to have security as a domain and subject in the curriculum. Because if you have to have something relevant to the industry, to your answer, bring curriculum that is relevant to the industry. Bring it as a mainstream, not as a hobby. And then you absolutely will have the listening of the corporates as well.
To align the curriculum with that of the industry, it requires structural changes, which colleges cannot do much, right? Personally, I have taken up on a number of occasions by suggesting, see, everyone is telling students are not employable, students are not employable. Okay, I've attended so many such seminars, so many conferences, and we go there with some hope that something will happen. But honestly, this is not a problem which the companies can solve or the colleges can solve by themselves. I think unless the academia at the highest level or the vice chancellor or the board of studies people come, they should also be a part of this because they are the people who are going to make the difference, right? And we expect them to make the difference, but it may not happen even in 4 years or 5 years because their thinking is totally out of line with what industry thinks, right? At least at the college, we feel the pinch. Our students are not getting placed. We are concerned about doing something.
What's the question?
No, the question
I think
is,
you're talking about the gap. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I'll move forward, but
what I'm saying is we have certain limitations in bridging that
completely.
gap. So we would definitely like some kind of inputs from the industry, how we can go about this.
I completely agree with you. The industry is like the head of the elephant, and let's say the academia is the body of the elephant. The elephant is trying to see how I look, but there's one critical element, the eyes, which is the government, also needs to come in play. That wouldn't happen at that rapid pace. It is going better, but it won't happen at a rapid pace until these three come together. So the other interventions that we again did at the leadership level is getting consensus, because we knew that the leadership level is absolutely key, to ensure that this is a progressive long-term setup. So a couple of things that we did is also that we put benchmarks of who will be the talent, because in a highly matrix organization, there is a tendency for different other organizations to also become individual organizations in a larger organization. Then mostly for all of us, if you are in HR, it becomes a challenge of how do you define culture? How do you define as you are this person? So we at the outset set frameworks which is cross-collaborative, and I had all my leaders who are actually the exec sponsors of those cross-collaborative frameworks. So for the people as well, they see leadership in collaboration. And through those cross-collaboration framework, they are aligned to our values, who we are, and what we do. And the work, be it engagement, be it technical development, be it the architects forum, or be it many other practices, all kind of happen through this, cross-functional forums. And that is a good thing because it gets my leadership team together on one seat to look at what is a culture. That also gives us the power to put controls. Because today in India, people sometimes get promoted very easily, and we can't, especially at the leadership level, you just cannot promote a person because he spent time in the organization. You sometimes sacrifice a good technical guy, he becomes a bad leader, and you lost 2 people in the process. So we come together and we have to ratify any promotion that happens to a leadership level. So there's a control. It's not enough that the business alone thinks that he's ready to be promoted. Similarly, hiring talent into the organization. At an organization-wide level, we spend a lot of time on onboarding. I can tell you with one of the things I'm happy about is every single hire that we have had in the company, once they reach a threshold of about 25 people, both myself and my leader, we take a whole day off at an off-site location to culturally orient them to who we are. What is our values? What is our culture? And what is to work in a global environment like ours?
So at Coffee Day, we have a 3% attrition at the barista level, but some of these skills are replaceable skill set. As long as I can have a supply chain that supports my growth story, I keep getting in new people into replaceable skill sets, right? I think the core of today's discussion is around leadership, around how do we make global leaders out of local talent, how do we attract organizations like Accenture and Xerox, how do they deal with talent across the world? Is the culture same? Is it different? I'd like to move to that aspect of how do you guys sustain a culture across borders, right? While at GE, we used to call GE a nation by itself. It had its own currency, it had its own language, it had its own, currency meaning things that you do there, what you can do and not do, norms of working. And you had a language, whether it was Six Sigma or the appraisal process or the session C, which a lot is talked about, or the leadership engine that GE is talked about. It's the same. Wherever you go, it's the same. How does Accenture cope with this global presence that you are while you're hiring local talent? What are some of the systemic ways by which you ensure that the Accenture culture continues to thrive?
As you said, I think it's a very similar story when it comes to a global organization. A global organization, there is a high degree of consistency in terms of the look and feel to start with. Culture is segmented into 2 pieces when we talk about culture in Accenture. One piece is the basic values of Accenture. Some things which we value as an organization, they are consistent throughout the world. And what we ensure is that it is not only just practiced or taught, but it is something which is implemented. If there is a deviation, examples are talked about, rather than not naming the person, but they're talked about. And if there are any deviations, no matter what level that deviation happened, how important the person was, we take corrective actions immediately, which are very similar across Accenture. Because if you slip, and for example, if the HR lead of the organization has done something which is wrong as per the integrity principle of your organization, and if you slip on that, because that was an important thing, that's a very wrong decision to take. You lose what you talk about culture in various forums. So there is a degree of walk the talk that happens. Leaders across Accenture, we ensure that they teach culture essentials, as we call it, by giving stories of how it translated, giving examples. There are modules there. So they teach to people, because we also believe that the best way to kind of learn is when you start teaching and standing in the front of the crowd and saying, this is what our culture is and this is how I live through it. These are the mistakes that I have done in the past and hence corrected it. So that's how, and there are various ways of how we practice that, how it is linked to your performance management system, how it is linked to the various processes that you do, how it is linked to the various ways it is practiced and talked about in various events, etc. The other piece is what we called as culture essentials, which has a localization twist to it. So what I mean by that is, let's talk of integrity. While integrity is very, very black and white, but when you talk about few things like respect to individual or developing talent, Now, there could be some differentiation or nuances which are different from a particular geography, and how do you make that relevant, even if it is just about communication. Let me give you a very simple example, and somebody raised a typical thing about the gender diversity and the problem around it. So gender diversity could be something that Accenture India is, let's say, propagating, making sure that the targets are set, everything is being done. Interestingly, when I was the Philippines HR lead, I didn't have that problem. Why? Because the social structure supported gender diversity. Women work there, and it's an accepted norm. You would find taxi drivers, who are women, and the social infrastructure supports that. So there I had a very different flavor of understanding this, because you would try to drive as an HR lead to say, you need to have entry level, when you're doing hiring, you should hire 50% women. Yes, sure. But then as you look at how they are progressing through the organization, now that's the cultural nuances and differentiation that you need to understand of how do you localize the same value differently in Philippines versus differently in India. So that's what we call as culture essential. So once you integrate that together, I think it works. It works to some degree. In the first year, it works better the second year, and better the third year.
So I'm going to continue on that conversation of diversity. When we put this panel together, while we were trying to get a product company and a BPO, a services company, and trying to get a pharma company, a manufacturing, sales and distribution company, I said, there are no ladies in the team, right? And we went after women, and we said, let's go after some accomplished women and get them on the team. And we finally got lucky with Aparna. Now, Aparna, the question to you, how critical is diversity, and what's the mandate around diversity, and more so gender diversity at this point in time?
So let me take the conversations forward from where Manoj left on the Philippines and the India example. Very classic example, and very true to its own sense. Let me give you a drill down within India itself and on Xerox. So diversity and gender diversity is very well accepted in Philippines. As he said, it's women have to work because a lot of men have migrated out of Metro Manila and core Philippines to other parts of the world to earn their livelihood, et cetera, et cetera. But it's very interesting to see Xerox Kochi office. We have a presence in Kerala, and we are in Cochin, has a 56% of women working there. I mean, that's immense, that's tremendous. Why? A very similar reason. Kerala, a lot of men have moved out to earn their livelihood. Women are, left behind. And they are very open to working. They are very open to coming out and earning their livelihoods. And this is a great advantage for us, which definitely we are exploring, where be it a healthcare domain, be it the HRO domain, be it the AMS, application management work that we do, you will see women spread across, the gender diversity spread across in Xerox Cochin office. I mean, what better example can we give there? 56% is absolutely unheard of in any location in India, in any office, or especially in the BPO ITS work. But yes, that's happening. 24/7 support. We are running all types of operations there, and yes, women are absolutely open to working there. Yes, diversity is very important for us, not just on the gender side, though the topic of discussion right now is gender. But all possible diversity is encouraged within our corporate, because we are a global organization. How we are managing and how we are encouraging women is to take over challenging roles, is by providing them a work-life balance. We do have different norms that are just not limited to women, but yes, more explored by the women, which says work from anywhere. I mean, we have moved away from the processes and policies of work from home. We call it work from anywhere. Very well utilized for our female diversity programs. But yes, what we are seeing is, especially in India, what we are seeing is in other parts of the world, more and more men coming forward and availing of these programs because it does suit their needs. So that's the diversity that we are talking about. Any other specific point?
That's fine. I think work from anywhere, I see a lot of Xerox guys working from CCD. We at CCD also have about 200 silent employees, as we call them, right? They're challenged in terms of speech and hearing, and they make some of the best coffees that we serve. Yeah. Let me move on. There was an interesting question around IR. Is IR coming back? And you're in a manufacturing world, and I know that there are a couple of pharma companies in Bangalore where unionization has happened in the recent past. What's the sentiment around that at Biocon?
Yeah, there is a definite wave or sentiment of getting together as groups as we go into the manufacturing industry, particularly at the worker level. Now let's, take a minute and understand why do people form groups, okay? They usually form groups because they feel that they want something which one person cannot get from the management team, right? And we have had challenges both in Bangalore and Hyderabad in our plants in the past and very recent past, where people have tried to unionize themselves and tried to raise some concerns. So, proactively what Biocon has done is there are three main elements for an employee at that level. First and foremost is the pay, the salary part of it. Second, and pay means pay plus benefits. Second is hygiene or safe conditions for work. So whether you talk of the training we give for health and safety, or the kind of health checkups that we do, or you look at basic things like washrooms and so on and so forth, cafeteria, for example. The third is the overall work discrimination, or not really work discrimination, but people discrimination between supervisor and a person at the worker level. Now, if these three things can be bridged, we have found in the past that unions, they start off sometimes as a movement, but they don't get formed. I'll give you an example. Sometime last year in Hyderabad, we have a plant where we have about almost 500 people, and we had taken it over from another company. And these employees, the moment they came into Biocon, they obviously got into Biocon's pay scale, all our standard policies, procedures, cafeteria, EHS, everything stepped in. Some of these employees wanted to create a problem, and they went and created a union which was not recognized at that point in time. They created a union and they wanted to hoist a flag. So we said, fine, we are not going to stop you by force. You guys can do whatever you want outside the office premises. So these guys went and sat outside the office premises. They put up their flag and they started doing some amount of disruption, creating, not allowing people to enter and so on. So we said, okay, let's first be human from a employer standpoint. It was summer, and Hyderabad, as all of you know, is pretty hot. The first thing we did was, from the company, we offered them drinking water. We said, okay, fine, you're not working, you're sitting outside, but you're free to drink water. We also provided for the basic snacks which they were entitled to if they were working in the company for that day. We said, okay, you have your food, you have your water, and you guys do whatever you want, but we won't allow you to enter the premises with any kind of flag or any kind of issue. They were very surprised. They were actually taken by complete surprise and shock. The next thing they did was go to the local politician and ask for help. The politician asked them, so what's your agenda? What do you really want? And they said, look, these are the 3-4 things we want. So these people came in, so we said, fine, we'll allow 2 people to come in. So 2 people came in, we discussed across the table, and whatever they wanted was already given. So this guy, after some time, started scratching his head and he said, okay, I'll come back. Okay. And to cut a long story short, the third day all of them joined and the union was dissolved. So I think, from an IR perspective, all of us who have now experienced new world economy, we understand what is the pain point of an average employee. And if we can provide the basic things in the right fashion, I don't think IR as a problem is going to be a major one. It's definitely, it's lurking somewhat. Even in Bangalore, we find that it's at the fringe somewhere. If we don't do something, somebody will come in and create some kind of a problem. But honestly speaking, so far it has never happened, because on pay, on hygiene, on safety, and in terms of treatment of employees, we have provided that balance. So I think that's the best way to handle it, Bala.
Maybe wear the hat of an astrologer or being able to predict something. Do you anticipate at some point in time, IT services, more so the BPO space, that there could be unionization or an association of BPO companies, employees?
Okay, so yeah, I think this is a topic which has been discussed in various forums multiple times. It comes up and then it kind of fizzles out. It comes up again after a few years, etc. Bala, before I kind of get there, I think two things we need to acknowledge. And I think as an IT and BPO organizations, we probably had, I think what we have done is we've killed that skill which was earlier termed as IR. Let's understand, some of us sitting here, as we would have qualified and done our MBAs from XLRI or wherever, the first company or the job that you took would be a manufacturing organization. That was the primary organization that you wanted to join. That is where you would go through. You would sit in the factory and understand some of the issues from the other side, and then grow through the ranks. With the knowledge industry coming in, the IT and the BPO and the outsourcing industry coming in, somewhere I think when we go to the campus today, nobody sits for a Tisco job versus a Glaxo or a Britannia job. The first job that they want is HR strategy, right? So somewhere we are responsible in a way of having killed that skill, which is IR, and that's problem number one. That's why IT industry or outsourcing industry is afraid of discussing that word called IR. I actually support Amitabh to say, if you look at really what is IR, IR is about that at some point in time, when you had manufacturing industries dominating the landscape of India, you had an uneducated base workforce which could not represent themselves, and at some point in time, the government wanted to be sure that you are providing the basic amenities of health, hygiene, basic compensation, basic discipline, basic things that they work from a fairness from a work perspective. So if you look at what exactly the IR landscape is, it is about looking at and giving the employee very basic things. Today, the IT industry and the BPO industry has knowledge workers who understand what they require, and like somebody said, actually questions to say, why can't I get this in 2 months or 3 months or 4 months? So I don't think the problem of the uneducated employee not being able to represent themselves is not existing in that industry. The second piece is, this industry needs to start looking at developing IR as a skill within their HR professionals to some extent. If we don't do that, then we'll always be in this afraid mode to say, what if something happens differently? Because we have a educated HR workforce which has not learned that skill or has lost that skill, is why we are afraid of it. So even if it happens tomorrow, I think we'll have a much more prepared HR organization to manage this.
I'm going to shift out of IR now and go back to my product. Yes, please.
Today, for the last 2 to 3 years, if you see, there is a slump in the industry. Hiring has gone down. There is no bench concept nowadays. So thereby, promotions, increment has come down to single digit. So with this, aspirations are not met. That will lead to dissatisfaction among the employees. Once dissatisfaction is there, associations will be formed. So this is the right time to awake all IT HR managers to prepare for tomorrow, where IR issues will creep up, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I did say that that's a skill that we need to develop. That's a skill that the IT organization has lost in this entire growth story that IT has gone for the last couple of decades. So that's point number one. The second piece, which is about everybody seeing 20-30% raises, etc. See, the dissatisfaction comes in when you see your friends working in this other company getting a 30% raise and your company giving you 10%. Today, when the industry is going through a normalization, and this is maturing of the industry, and every industry, whether you look at FMCG, whether you look at the financial services industry in the 1996, went through this curve, where financial services saw that that 35% increments paycheck go down drastically. When it is an industrial phenomena, then the amount of dissatisfaction that you're talking about will not happen, because you are dealing with an educated employee who discusses with the other person to say, I got a 10% increase, what did you get? And if he hears 8%, he's very happy. He thinks he's in the right job. The second piece, which I think we need to learn as leaders, this is an educated workforce. When we started this workforce some time back, we created this workforce as a fun place. IT industry was a fun place to work, bring your guitar to work. It was an extension of a college atmosphere. I think today you need to start treating the IT employee or a BPO employee as an intelligent person who understands the environment and is ready to hear even the bad news if you are able to deliver it well. So a communication skill, which is, if you look at one of the pertinent skills of IR, is very, very important for you to treat your employees as matured individuals and having those tough conversations, saying that, look, this is the environment. This is why this is happening. Now our industry is matured. I do these conversations every now and then, and by the way, I get a very mature response back. I don't hear dissatisfaction, because like I said, if the industry was growing at 30% and you were doing a 5%, you will have dissatisfaction.